Hey y'all, it's your friendly neighborhood therapist. In breaking news, there was a shooting today at a church in Michigan. So, how many days has America gone without a mass shooting? Zero. Now, what we know so far is that two people are dead and eight are wounded. Children are likely among those victims, and there will likely be more victims found because of what occurred. So, according to authorities, a gunman rammed a vehicle through the front of the church during a large service. This was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. This is a Mormon denomination, in case people don't know that. He began shooting. After ramming the truck into the chapel, he began shooting, and then he intentionally set a fire, which grew into a large blaze. So now that the firefighters have gotten that fire out, they suspect that they will find more victims because police suspect that there were people near the fire that could not get out. Now, officers did exchange fire with the gunman upon getting to the scene, and they killed him. Rightfully so. And police got there very quickly. According to Police Chief William Renee, the call came in at 10:25 a.m. and 32 seconds, and police were on scene at 10:25 and 57 seconds, and the suspect had been neutralized by 10:33 a.m. So this all happened pretty fast. Rams the truck. Police got there in seconds of the call, but in that time, he was able to shoot and set a fire, killing and injuring multiple people. So here's the gunman. This is Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old Marine veteran who fought in Iraq. Now, y'all's president has already gone on to say that this is an attack on Christians. I guarantee this man identified as Christian. We don't know that yet, but I would bet my bottom dollar he identifies as Christian. You want to know why? Because the KKK identifies as Christians and they hate Catholics. Plenty of hateful people identify as Christians, so called. We just had one not too long ago who was unalived who identified as Christian but spread hate and bigotry. So, identifying as Christian means nothing. It literally means nothing. But I bet money he identified as Christian. Now, could this still be an attack on Christians? Sure. But we've had other shootings happen, school shootings and all those things. So it's not just an attack on Christians. No, it's a problem in this country with domestic terrorists who fit a certain profile, but this administration don't want to acknowledge that. In fact, they removed information from the DOJ that stated that this profile, people who fit this profile, are actually the greatest threat to America, the greatest domestic terroristic threat. I know some military folks, they actually learned that. They learned that at the different schools, like the schools to become captain and major and things like that. They learned that the greatest domestic threat to this country are people who fit that profile. White, male, sometimes prior service, such as him. But either way, they want to ignore that, and that's why things like this will keep happening because they want to look everywhere else to people who ain't doing this. They needed to be somebody black. They needed to be another person of color. They needed to be a Muslim. They needed to be somebody trans. It ain't. I'm not saying that those other groups don't have people like that within them, but for the most part, that's the profile. And if they want to keep ignoring that, then this will keep happening. And here's what they don't care. It'll be thoughts and prayers as it always is. No change to anything, no change to gun laws, no change to the Second Amendment. Because, like y'all boy Charlie Kirk said, right? A few lost lives are worth it to maintain the Second Amendment. Well, we lost some lives today. hmm and he said it's worth it. And y'all agree with him, right? All of y'all who like him and who got mad at us for how we were reacting. It, this is why we 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 understand that in order to at least attempt to stop gun violence, you have to actually know and acknowledge and be honest about the problem. But y'all don't want to do that. Y'all want to get hung up on left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, black versus white, straight versus gay, all these different divisions. Y'all want to get so hung up on that versus do we just want to be a country that is able to live peaceably among each other? And we can't be because people hate people. People are hateful. And what they will say, let's be real clear, pay attention to the news cycle, y'all. Honestly, have y'all even heard about this yet today, or am I the first person bringing this news to y'all? If that's the case, that's a problem. It happened at 10:25 this morning. But pay attention to how this is framed by this administration and by the news. This will be framed as a lone wolf. He's a lone wolf. He probably suffers from PTSD or some other sort of mental illness. This is a isolated incident versus this is domestic terrorism. He was probably hateful. And according to sources, he's MAGA. They'll leave that out too. Now, that hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but they have a lot of photos from his mama's social media and his, and it points to him being MAGA. So, yeah, pay attention to how this gets framed, especially by this administration. This administration will frame this as a lone wolf, as an attack on Christianity. This is not an attack on Christianity. This is an attack on America because y'all refuse to acknowledge who domestic terrorists typically are. This is the profile of a typical domestic terrorist. The J6ers that y'all pardon, that is the profile of a typical domestic terrorist. Okay? So until y'all ready to acknowledge that, these things will keep happening. Y'all keep saying thoughts and prayers. The Second Amendment won't change. Y'all won't change any gun laws. You won't do anything. And people will just die. And y'all are okay with that. So don't get on here crying and praying and all of it. Y'all are okay with this. Y'all who support this administration, y'all are okay with what happened today. And you will not convince me otherwise. You're fine with it. You're all right. You're all right with the bodies. You're all right with the babies. You're all right with all of that. As long as you get to keep your guns, you're fine with gun violence. On any note, if any more news comes through, I will keep y'all updated. But in the meantime, y'all have a beautiful, wonderful rest of y'all day, and I will holler at y'all later.